agent board as it stands right now. Only a few names left that are highlighted. We're still waiting on Kyler Murray. That expected toward the end of the week, potentially Reek Woolen, Kayvon Chason, Rasheed Walker. But Trey Hendrickson at the top of the list there. When you think about what's going to happen for him, the next big name that we're waiting for sure, he's looking for a massive payday, Lewis. Some teams still searching for pass rushing help. What are some landing spots that might be most realistic for him?
Yeah, I think the landing spots may not necessarily equate, Laura, to a massive payday. That's the problem, right? So really he's going to have to try and really look for the best of both worlds, meaning I'm sure he wants to go to a place where there's going to be, they're going to be in contention for maybe a Super Bowl trip, and where also he's going to be able to be compensated relatively, reasonably. I mean, he's not going to reach the $30 million per year mark. So really for me, look, Jeremy Fowler in the last hour, he kind of brought up this name, and it makes sense. The Buffalo Bills, right? They're looking for a pass rusher, a bookend to go along with Greg Rousseau. Now that Joey Bosa is a free agent, A.J. Epinesa is a free agent. Look, Trey Hendrickson fits perfectly. I mean, that's exactly Trey Hendrickson. When you think about it, him and Joey Bosa, very similar in terms of how they like to win. Power, hand usage, great get off. I mean, they can play the run. They're stout at the point of attack. It's just, look, Trey Hendrickson's situation is one of the most wild in free agency over the past couple of years. That this guy has not been able to get his money. Just don't understand it.
Now's the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I realize you said it, 30 million, maybe a little bit too. I get why he's trying to go after that, though. He's like, I finally have a chance to get out there in the world. Okay, remember, our coverage continues tomorrow. We're back with you, our SportsCenter special countdown to free here with us today. While it's been a little slower than yesterday so far, but there's still going to be some more action happening. Some big names still out there. And we've got J-Mac here. We got Louis Riddick. We got Mina Kimes. We got Dan Orlovsky. What's up, everybody? We're going to dive right in with Geno. His last start came for the Jets almost a decade ago, week 7 of 2016. Since that time, Geno has played for 4 other teams, made a couple Pro Bowls. The Jets, well, no team has won less, thrown fewer touchdowns, or posted a worse total QBR than the New York Jets. How about this? Jets running back Braylon Allen posted his reaction to the Geno Smith trade, tweeting, "We ain't right back, though." Adam referenced this earlier. Remember, he said, wait, what was it that he said? I forget the quote right now. All right, we'll figure it out.
They tried to write me off.
I ain't right back. There we go. All right. The problem is, when you say that, you have to know the quote. I forgot it for a second. Dan, what is your reaction to this news? You see Geno Smith going back to the Jets.
Yeah. They now have an adult in the room, a professional in the building at that position, and that's not anything against Justin Fields, but we have a guy in Geno Smith that's been a starting quarterback for years in the NFL and has been in the NFL for a dozen years plus. And I think in reality, that's kind of what the Jets need. If you're the Jets and you look at some of the pieces that they've added, the biggest thing they need is somebody that gives them a chance on a week in, week out basis to be a competitive football team. Make no mistake about it. They are going to address this position, quarterback, in the 2027 draft for the long term. But for the right now, Geno brings competency. He brings adult feel. He brings a professional element to that room and certainly to their building, and that's a win for the Jets today.
I love the way you said that. Coming off the way the season went last year for the New York Jets, you needed to get veterans, high-character guys in the building, and Geno is that. You look at Demario Davis, who they signed in free agency, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who they traded for, veterans that are going to come in, and whatever the young guys that they choose to draft and the young guys that are on that roster, you have guys that can show them the way, mentor, and teach those guys. A ton of credit to the Jets here, just in the sense of Geno Smith in a day was going to become a free agent, and who knows if the Minnesota Vikings might have been interested in him, or the Pittsburgh Steelers, or whatever other team that was quarterback needy, that Geno Smith might have decided, hey, maybe that gives me a better opportunity. The Jets get ahead of it, trade for him, get him into the building, and now you're kind of a journey that Geno's gone on. He's returning back to the New York Jets where it all started, but in a completely different sense, where now he's the veteran that they can trust, and fans are going to be excited for Geno Smith coming back.
Yeah, reports are that he's excited about this being a full circle moment. And Mina, do you think this is a better opportunity for Geno than what he had in Vegas last year?
Well, Laura, it would be hard to be worse than what we saw in Vegas. I mean, that was probably the worst situation of any quarterback in the NFL for much of the season. The receiving group without Brock Bowers, you remember, was injured for several games, was a bottom 5 group, honestly, maybe worse than that. And the offensive line was a disaster with injuries there as well. And now he joins a Jets team that, for all of the flaws over the last few years of the roster, they have done a good job building that offensive line. It is young and ascendant, and undoubtedly, in my mind, an improvement over what Geno is playing behind in Las Vegas. You've got Breece Hall back there, Garrett Wilson. I think they need to add another receiver, but there is potential there, I think, for him to be surrounded by a pretty good supporting cast. Frank Reich comes in as a play caller, so you think he's probably going to a lot of 11 personnel, spread things out, ball out quick, throwing over the middle of the field, short, intermediate. I think Geno is capable of executing that offense at a high level. He's just got to cut back on some of the bad decisions we saw last season. But I do think the improvement in circumstances could help that process.
Yeah, this was one of the more disappointing. Well, to put it bluntly, it was pretty, or simply, it really was a disappointing team last year. But, you know, I think the most important thing about this transaction is the relationship, and I said this earlier, that he's going to have with Frank Reich, and the ability for the coaching staff overall to get more out of this offensive line that Mina is talking about. Because, look, this offensive line, one for one, was very talented a year ago. But if you watch this football team, and we got a chance to watch them up close and personal, they were just so erratic in terms of their ability to execute and play with any type of consistency. So although they are great individual talents, some like high-end #1 draft picks, they just didn't play well. So they need to really up that in terms of their performance. Look, Breece Hall is one of the very best running backs in the entire NFL. They brought in a lot of veteran people on this football team that obviously aren't going to be there for the long term. But obviously, Aaron Glenn needs someone in the locker room. He needs a couple guys in the locker room to kind of like just clean out the mentality that has been there that he wasn't able to get corrected this past year. No matter what he did, it didn't work. So maybe he's now saying, hey, look, maybe we should get a bunch of guys like a David Onyemata, you know, to come in there on the defensive side when you think about guys like Demario Davis. Those dudes are guys who have played a long time in this league, along with Geno, who know what it takes to be a pro and to win. And maybe they can have kind of like that kind of like positive impact on this organization going forward, because you know they're not really in the picture for the long term.
Yeah, I'm excited for Garrett Wilson. I mean, Mina mentioned it a little bit, but the floor was so low here. Like, Geno's got to be an improvement over what they had before. Yeah. The Jets were the only team you guys ever play 16 games and not have a single receiver over 400 yards or even reach 400 yards. Like, that's bizarre to even think about. Okay, another defensive signing for the Jets. We just heard some of those new names, but according to our Jets reporter Rich Samini, the Jets signing former Bears cornerback Nashawn Wright to a one-year contract, source confirming there. Good value for the Jets, right? And remember, as Rich points out, Wright had 5 interceptions last season, 5 more than the Jets, who had 0. So a chance to take the ball away, that's something that Aaron Glenn is desperate for. Let's talk about the Jets division rival now in Foxborough. Adam Schefter and Jeremy Fowler reporting a 4-year, $80 million deal with former Packer Romeo Doubs with the Patriots. Doubs has 21 touchdown catches over his 4-year career, a higher total than any 2 other Patriots wide receivers combined in that span. Some wanted to see if they would go after A.J. Brown. Adam just told us recently that the door is not necessarily closed on that, but let's focus here on Doubs, who they did get. Mina, how do you feel about that fit for New England?
I love it. I mean, he's not the #1 prototypical X receiver that the Patriots fans and organization have been waiting for, but I think he's an excellent replacement for Stephon Diggs, who was incredibly productive in this offense last year in terms of being a sharp route runner. He's really good on intermediate routes, similar to Diggs. He's 12th in yards per route run, tied with Diggs actually last year. He is a red zone threat in Green Bay. He was consistently productive in the end zone. And I think just a reliable target for Drake May, which is what they need. So, again, as a replacement for Diggs, I like it. It does not mean they should not continue to be active in the receiver market, either with a trade or in the draft. But I do think it is good value for who's a player in Doubs who has proven to be a solid veteran.
Yeah, I love the fact that you said a reliable wide receiver, because you look at the suddenness of a guy like Romeo Doubs, the way he gets off of the line of scrimmage and create space and get open. I think that's a weapon that for Drake May as a quarterback, that's a guy that you can trust. And that's what Stephon Diggs was able to bring to the offense. So I think as they move forward, the combination of him, and then on the other side, you have Kayshon Boutte, a guy that got down the field and became the vertical threat for them a season ago. Now you mix in a guy like Romeo Doubs, where one guy is over there taking taking a safety or taking the top off of a defense, and another guy's getting open underneath, creating that space. So the combination of those two guys will work hand in hand, and also having Hunter Henry, a reliable tight end, I think it's the right move for New England as they continue to progress and improve as a football team.
Yeah, the mix is so important, right? In that room in particular, you got to kind of build it like a basketball team. You got to have guys who have complementary skill sets. You can't have everyone who looks exactly the same. Romeo, quite honestly, though, has a little bit of everything. He could play the X, he could play the Z, he could play the slot. He could run routes out of the backfield. Yeah. He can be a catch-and-run guy. He can be a 50-50 ball guy. So he really is. You may not look at him in the wide receiver picture overall in the league as a true number one, but he has number one versatility, let's put it that way. Because that's what all number ones have. You can line him up anywhere. He can do that. He may not be the top-end guy, but this is, without a doubt, a level up for them in that wide receiver room and just what they needed because he fits with everyone else.
Diggs was the only Patriot with even 600 receiving yards last year. He's going to be cut. Dan, how much of an impact do you see Dobbs having on this offense, and specifically Drake May and his development that you want to see next season?
I think it changes the way they can play offensive football. I love Romeo Dobbs. I think it's a significant loss for Green Bay. The four young stars that they have that are really skill position guys are their future. We saw Kayshon Boutte take a huge jump this year when it comes to down the field, big-bodied. You can kind of be the splash play type of guy that took the top off of a defense in many ways. And then you think about Trey Hendrickson, who's going to be their second-year back that became a focal point of their run game and their explosive element in the run game. Kyle Williams and the one-on-one take your shot down the field guy. And now Romeo Dobbs, and Lewis is right, and so is J-Mac and MK on what he is. Do you get open at the line of scrimmage? He does. Do you get open at the top of routes? He does. Do you catch the ball on a consistent and strong basis with your hands? He does. I think, and if you think about Josh McDaniels in New England as their play caller, he's always notorious for, I don't need one, I need 4 or 5. That's kind of the way he goes about calling his offense. It's matchup-based. This is another matchup weapon for this offense, and I love it.
Yeah, and Dan, all those guys you're talking about, they're 25 or younger. A lot of youth there. Just quickly, Lewis, when you think about where they're going to pick, I mean, success in the NFL means you don't necessarily have the highest picks, but there are a ton of great wide receivers in this draft. They pick at the end of the first and the second round. Can they find some of the weapons that Mina's talked about it too there in the draft to make this team better?
You absolutely could. I mean, just think about the wide receiver from Washington, a guy like Denzel Boston, who would be another guy who's a different profile than anybody they have. He kind of looks like Matt Collins, but he's a much better route runner. A guy who can go in the slot and absolutely break you down, break your fifth defensive back down like nobody's business. Run after the catch, contested catchability down the field. Yeah, they'll be able to get great value down there. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that pick right there because the board can fall in so many different ways, as you know. You're just kind of sitting back chilling for about 2 hours until you go, man, a lot of the guys that we thought we were going to get aren't even here. So it'll be fun for them, but it's good to be picking late in the first.
Yeah, or I don't know, Dan. Maybe there's somebody there that they're really excited about. They're obviously going to be aggressive in trying to make sure they get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I also think tight end is very much so at play for this offense. It doesn't have to necessarily be a receiver in the draft. Lewis would know him greater than I, but I think some of the tight ends that are going to be in conversation late first round or a second round, I would go back to the way that Josh McDaniels likes to play football, likes to design football, creating matchups. 2 tight ends on the field was a big deal this past year. I think tight end is very much so in play early in the draft for them.
If you're a fan of the NFL, how could you not be excited right now with all the change we're seeing? Teams are getting better. So much is happening, and we've got it all for you right here. It's going to continue. I have some top free agent quarterbacks, notable names in this free agent class, other notable options for quarterback-needy teams, including Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco. As you can see, Malik Willis is a Dolphin. Geno Smith heading back to the Jets. That happened in a trade just a couple hours ago. Tua landing in Atlanta, expected to at least, which raises the question about Kyler Murray. Adam, let's start there. What are we expecting to happen here when we expect the team to release him tomorrow?
Well, Laura, we think they could release him as early as tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. He has a bonus due later this week that the Cardinals do not intend to pay. They'll have to release him by then. They could do it at their discretion. Once he is released, There is expected to be a robust market for him, but I think people around the league regard the Vikings as the leading contender. As for Kirk Cousins, he also will be released by this time tomorrow from Atlanta, making him a free agent. He does not sound to be in any rush to go find a new team. He may take a much more patient approach and see what's out there. He may wait for a quarterback to be injured. He may wait to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, but he's not going to be in any rush. And you know what? He can afford to be. He's made an awful lot of money in his career. He can sit back, have a lemonade, and relax and wait until there's some sort of quarterback opening.
Lemonade, huh?
Is that his drink of choice? Yeah. Lemonade? I like that.
Shefty has.
Yeah, well,
he
that
can
looks
have a
like
lemonade
water,
while he gets his haircut at Supercuts.
Hey,
exactly
I love
right.
those commercials. It's so good. Why not? That's very refreshing. Okay, so as we continue on here, reminder that if you're not in front of your TV all the time, that's okay. We forgive you, but you can scan that QR code on your screen, and that'll give you all the updates from Adam Schefter on the ESPN app. There's going to be a lot more news, okay, as Adam's talking about here. You don't want to miss anything. Lewis, let's talk about Tua, Malik Willis. They're already off the board. What is the market for Kyler Murray when you think about what he can bring to a team? And maybe specifically Minnesota, because it does seem like all signs are pointing that direction.
Well, starting with Kyler, what he brings to a football team is undeniable on the football field. You can see it. Anybody can turn on the tape. Everyone has access to all 22. And you can see what he brings as far as being a dual threat. As a former defensive back, and J-Mac can attest to this, he's a nightmare. He's a nightmare because of the fact the way he can extend plays. Quarterbacks who can extend plays like this cause you to lose sleep. And that's why you want to work with guys like this. It's what else comes along with Kyler Murray that if you're doing the homework on him, that's the kind of thing that you're going to have to get at. Who authentically is he? Both as an individual, as a guy who, when he comes into your locker room, how he interacts with the rest of the players, how he interacts with the offense, how he interacts with the quarterback room. Because, look, when you look at his tape, you're sitting there and you're going, okay, so why didn't it work in Arizona? What is true about some of the reports that you heard coming out of Arizona about whether or not he's committed to doing everything that he needs to do off the field to be great on the football field? And is he going to bring that to us in Minnesota in particular, since that's obviously the most natural landing spot? Because, look, KOC, Kevin O'Connell, and Josh McCown, I believe, are the salt of the earth when it comes to quarterback evaluation, development, implementation. I love those guys. Yeah. They better do their homework, because to me, you bring him in there, you're sending a definite message to J.J. McCarthy, and one that he's not going to like, and we don't know how he's going to handle, quite honestly.
Well, especially after you let Sam Darnold go.
Yeah.
He goes on to win a Super Bowl. Not that they could have predicted that, but that's what happened. So, yeah.
And I think of it all, you look at it, they do bring in Kyler Murray. He's a very different player than J.J. McCarthy. So I think that does bring up that conversation. And the J.J. McCarthy side of it is just like, you better go out there and perform. Like, Kyler Murray's going to be potentially on a one-year deal where he's making league minimum. So they're not saying, hey, we're going to bring Kyler in, and that's our entire future. But I do think it's interesting when you start to look at setups. Atlanta Falcons brought in Tua Tagovailoa, a quarterback that has some similarities to a guy like Michael Penix Jr. So you can see those guys and the offense going together. I look at all of this. If it doesn't work out in Minnesota for Kyler Murray, where do you start to look? The Indianapolis Colts is interesting to me, just in the sense of if they can't work out a deal with Daniel Jones that's long-term, now you have him on just a one-year deal. So it's like, what is going to be your future? Is he going to be healthy week one? If he's not, you have a guy like Kyler Murray that can go out there and could be effective potentially for this offense.
I mean, Dan, you brought that up to Pat and the guys earlier. They weren't totally buying it, but just walk us through the scenario that you laid out there. It's no slight to Daniel Jones necessarily, but you bring Kyler Murray in for cheap. No. Sounds like a good plan, right?
Well, I think in Lewis's perspective on this, when it comes to like team building, is going to be really important, because I do think that if you're Indianapolis and you have the transition tag on Daniel Jones, it's important to just take a step back in this negotiation. Daniel Jones had a great year. I think everyone is rooting for Daniel Jones to get another nice contract. But he is a player that is coming off of an Achilles tear, and a couple years ago had an ACL tear. Okay, so you've got this player that does have a little bit of some significant injury in his past. So that has to, I would imagine, be a part of the conversation. And if you're Indy, are you making a call to Kyler Murray and being like, well, we think we're going to have Daniel Jones, or we're in conversation with Daniel Jones. So is this a place that would interest you? Is it only Minnesota for Kyler Murray? If you're Kyler Murray and it's Indy as a maybe and Minnesota as a maybe, which one do you find more appealing? I just think it's, I believe Kyler is going to go to Minnesota, yes, but I do think it's important for Indianapolis to at least have a conversation about it.
Adam, I have a couple questions. So first of all, does Kyler, how much does Kyler control all of this, right? How much of a say does he have in that? Let's explain that to people. And then furthermore, what does the timeline really look like here? Because we're talking about, the official new league year starts tomorrow at 4 p.m., but maybe they wait a little bit to release him. He does have that bonus you keep alluding to, so it's going to be before the end of the week. But just illustrate that for us a little bit.
Yeah. It's a $19.5 million bonus that triggers for 2027. It's due on March 15th, which is Sunday.
Okay.
So that means that the Cardinals, in all probability, will wind up releasing Kyler. They could hold on to him if they want till the end of the week, 4 p.m. Eastern, but they have to release him before the 15th, March 15th. Otherwise, $19.5 million becomes guaranteed next year. That's not happening. And that's why teams are not trading for him, because they know that they have to take on that money if he's not released. Now, the New York Jets were in a situation where they didn't want Geno Smith to get to the market where he might choose another team, so they flip-flopped rounds of a draft pick. It really didn't cost them much to do that. Geno now goes to the Jets. Kyler, though, has so much money that would trigger later this week that every team in the league expects that Arizona is just going to release him by Friday. But it certainly could happen at the start of the league year. But Arizona's just holding out hope that somehow, some way, somebody might step forward and be willing to flip-flop a pick when they already are paying Kyler $36.8 million guaranteed for the upcoming season.
Nobody's going to do that, right?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, not from.
It's this.
Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's worth pointing out. Either way, we have to go. But I love that you illustrated that, Adam, because I think a lot of people were wondering exactly what this timeline looks like with Kyler. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. We've got more coming your way. Board, still some big names yet to sign, but a trade happened where Geno Smith, Adam, goes to the Jets.
Yes, Laura, as you pointed out earlier in the show, as he said, they wrote me off. I ain't right back.
There we
though.
go.
The
That was
letter
it.
must have got lost in the mail. Geno Smith now. Another trade for Jets general manager Darren Muji, who continues to wheel and deal and make things happen throughout his time in New York as the Jets general manager. Today, Geno Smith, who now steps in as the number one quarterback, Romeo Dobbs, signs with or agrees to a deal with the England Patriots, 4 years, up to $80 million. The Patriots needed wide receiver help. They got it today in the form of Romeo Dobbs, who leads Green Bay. Had spoken to Washington. He winds up agreeing to a deal with the New Patriots today, and it wasn't the only deal he got today. Braden Smith, the former Colts offensive lineman, agrees to a 2-year deal up to $25 million with the Houston Texans. He started 105 games during his eighth season in Indianapolis.
Me,
Adam, he now stays in the AFC South, but
bit.
moves on to the Houston Texans, who have an awful lot of time.
Adam can't hear. We're going to cut his mic. Listen, you guys, I was powering through that. I feel really bad to cut Adam's mic during free agency because that just feels wrong. We're going to get him back, though, okay? We're going to figure out what's going on over there and get Adam Schefter back in just a minute. But in the meantime, I got Lewis here with me. Let's talk about the Lions, okay? That was actually pretty funny. I was hanging on. I was like, okay, every other word was coming through. I was kind of doing context clues. We're not going to make the viewer at home do that with us. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery spent 3 years together in Detroit. Sonic and Knuckles, they scored some points, okay? The Lions, the only team with multiple running backs to run for at least 25 touchdowns since 2023. But Montgomery is now in Houston, traded earlier this month for draft picks and Juice Scruggs, and Gibbs. They now have Isaiah Pacheco in Detroit. That's what you would have heard from Adam, and that's the point of talking about this. Dan, do you like the fit of Pacheco in Detroit?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, the loss of David Montgomery is felt in that short yardage, goal line, we want to run at you type of offense. And that's kind of the identity of who they've been since Dan Campbell, who's their head coach in Detroit, has taken over. And without Montgomery there, you lost that, as great as Jahmyr Gibbs is. And so the addition of Pacheco gives them that guy. He is not going to be their focal point. I don't expect him to be the guy that David Montgomery was when it comes to either usage or production. But he's a good, solid player, and he's a good, solid back, and he fits the downhill run game that Detroit kind of wants to try and get back to. We saw them sign Cade Mays for their offensive center position as well. So, yeah, this one makes a lot of sense for who Detroit wants to be.
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and I said it before, for Isaiah is really to just stay healthy. He's just got to stay on the football field. He's got to be available for when they want to take some carries and take some of the load off of Jahmyr Gibbs. Look, Jahmyr right now over the past 2 years, he's averaged right around 250 carries on, from rushing the football. His usage in the passing game has really ramped up. He had 52 receptions 2 years ago, 77 receptions last year. You would assume that that's going to ramp up even more. They know what they have in this young man, and he's going to be featured because this guy really, I think of all the running backs in the league, and I know we always put this on Christian McCaffrey as being the guy who we always, involved in the MVP conversation. I thought from the time Jahmyr was a rookie, he's an MVP caliber back, and I think you're going to see that this year in the way in which they use him. But Pacheco just needs to stay healthy. He's dealt with a couple injuries. He's been nicked up. He runs with that kind of style anyway. Just stay available. That's what they're going to need.
Yeah, it's interesting. Short yardage would be a new role for Pacheco. Kareem Hunt did that well for the Chiefs last year, so really he didn't have to do as much of that. Gibbs touches, by the way, they've increased all 3 pro seasons up to 320 last year. You expect to see that trend continue. New on NFL Live, Travis Kelce spent some time with Pat McAfee today, spoke about his decision to return for a 14th season.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty short and brief, and the Chiefs knew where I was the entire time on it. I think you always need to take a step back. You always need to take a step back, breathe, let the emotions of the season settle down, and see where the body is and things like that. But man, I'm still in love with this game. I still love going to work, putting on the pads, grinding it out, and just playing the game. And I think my best opportunity was playing for the Chiefs yet again and running this thing back with Pat Mahomes and Coach Reed, and got my guy Eric Bieniemy, Coach Bieniemy back. There's a lot of pieces in Kansas City that I absolutely love, and I can't wait to get back in the building with them.
It makes sense, right? It's good to see Travis Kelce returning there, joining him on the offense. And he mentioned how excited he'd be about this. Super Bowl MVP running back Kenneth Walker III with a new 3-year deal. They've got some serious secondary holes, though. Lewis, you talked about this earlier. Losing 2 cornerbacks to the Rams, plus safety Brian Cook to the Bengals. It's going to be interesting to see how they fill some of those voids. And Mina, the Chiefs have been busy this offseason, but what do you make of the moves they've made so far?
Well, let's start with the good. Bringing Kelce back, he was productive last season. Now that's not a hole. I like the Kenneth Walker III signing. They needed an explosive back. But there are still major needs at high-value positions on this roster. You alluded to it. The cornerback room now plays for the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they have to add there. I think they need speed on the defensive line desperately. That, to me, was a serious issue last season. And then receiver, Rashee Rice's availability is going to be something to monitor, but that's a position they need to add at. Now, the good news is, Dan, in my mind, where they're picking in the draft 9, they're going to have real opportunities at all 3 of those positions, I believe. Probably one of the 2 top receivers, probably the best corner in the draft, and hopefully for them, maybe one of the 3 edges available there too. So while there are major needs for this team, I do like the way the draft could potentially shake out for them. Yeah,
Dan, they've got the 9th overall and the 29th overall pick after those trades. They're sending their defense to the Rams. What do you think they should do? How should they prioritize the way that they look at this draft?
Yeah, they need to replicate the year that they had 2 first-round picks not many years ago, and they took McDuffie and Karlaftis, and it was kind of the backbone for another run. I think it's interesting wide receiver, totally. I would be fascinated to be in the conversations with Kansas City because right tackle, defensive end, corner, and receiver are probably the 4 that you sit there and say, those are our top 4. How do they value right tackle in relation to pass rusher? We talked about it last year on a almost weekly basis, that getting after the quarterback was something that they were just struggling to do. And so I would tell you, the priority for me, I would probably say right tackle, honestly. Wide receiver for sure is going to be high on that list, but I think having to protect Patrick and just trying to rebuild the way that they play football, I think they need to stylistically change, I think has got to be the biggest deal in Kansas City.
Yeah, one thing that Lewis brought up earlier, which we don't have time for right here, but just to stew on a little bit, do they try to still find a way to get Jeremiah Love, which I don't think he's going to be there at 9, but if you could maybe move up and grab him, woo, I don't know. Even with Kenneth Walker, I get it. Maybe you say we've got enough running backs, but still, yeah, pass rusher too. All right, hey, Dan has spent some time over the years pumping up a lot of his skills, especially his basketball abilities. Here's a tweet from Dan, February of last year. What I just did to the lunchtime YMCA Open Gym hoop run in Westport, Connecticut was legendary. Unreal effort up and down the court. He's talking about himself, okay? So we all got to see some of this bear out in real time today in the Thunderdome with Pat McAfee. Dan, you started out with some bricks, okay? It wasn't going well. I thought you were a quadruple double type player, as you claim, but then there were some tough misses. Foot's on the line. I don't know. Either way, you kind of got it back together. You did some more sports feats in the next few minutes after this. You went over there. You made a nice putt, which was impressive. You did some punches. You threw a strike. What happened?
Good shots are good shots.
I don't know,
Good shots,
Dan.
outdoor rim, not a friendly rim, chain, not a net. So those are good strokes. They just didn't go down. But once one went down, they would have just been like repetitive. I would have been basically Jimmer Fredette.
Wow. I like the way Dan looks when he watches himself. Like, it's just this, it's such pride.
I was disappointed. Good shots, though.
Your form is actually not, guys, something nice is not that bad for your size. I thought it was going to look a little goofier. You actually are pretty smooth. Compliment.
My form is not that bad.
That's a good compliment. Dan, you know what? Day to be proud.
It was all state.
I think Pat donated like $30,000 to charity as a result of your athletic feats today. So it was all for the good of everything. Great job, Dan.
Yes.
We're really proud of you here. You're representing us. You're representing us well.
The pitch was the best part. It was a great pitch. It was basically Paul Skeens.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. Well, you can go over and start for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, and we'll see what happens. Dan, I think you have to go. You're catching a flight so you can get back here to do TV with us tomorrow. We appreciate you. Great work. Great work out there. We're excited to have you back. And straight ahead, we got more coming your way. Hey, the Titans. Oh, wait. Sorry. Hold up. We have Dan Brick Orlovsky rotating around here in our studio. Dan, we wanted to give you a little ode.
Ever get to a point where it's like, do you think ESPN will ever get to a point where it's someone else?
Chargers and Jets rounded out the top 5 when we kicked things off yesterday. Let's zero in on those Raiders. They used that cap space in a huge way since Monday at noon. They reset the center market by a mile with center Tyler Linderbaum and agreed to a deal with Kwity Paye from the Colts. They gave off-ball linebackers over $76 million combined and signed ex-Vikings wideout Jalen Naylor. They're thinking about Fernando Mendoza. Mina, how have you liked the way that the Raiders have spent so far?
I like a lot of the choices they made, and I think you can see a theme there when you see them all together, which is they really bet on youth and upside. They want a core that'll grow with their young quarterback, led, of course, by the Linderbaum signing, which, yes, that's an eye-opening price tag, but it's a player who I think will be worth it if he does for Mendoza what they hope at the center position, as well as that zone run game with Clint Kubiak. As far as defense goes, Dean and Walker reunite as teammates. I think there's exciting complementary skill sets there. So I like them remaking their linebacker group in that fashion. I think those players will play well next to each other, with Dean as more of the pass rusher, Quay Walker as an excellent tackler.
Yeah, we expect him to take Mendoza. I love to see the way they're building around him. I think if you're Fernando Mendoza watching all this, you're like, okay, good. I like this. Feel good about it. We'll see how it all pans out on the field, though. Another team on that top 5 cap space list to start the week was the Titans, and they haven't been shy either. You see the former Giant Wan'Dale Robinson, $70 million richer, following old head coach and new OC in Tennessee, Brian Dable. John Franklin Myers and a pair of cornerbacks will join him, along with former teammate Daniel Bellinger. So the Titans making a lot of moves. We talked about it too, J-Mac. Like, they may be the team that looks a little similar to what last year's Patriots were doing, even at this time. What impresses you about the way that they've approached free agency?
The continuity has been big. John Franklin Myers, he played for Robert Saleh with the New York Jets. I think that goes a long way. You look at even the trade they made for Jermaine Johnson, who played for Saleh with the Jets as well. And then you talk about Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator, and the former Giants players that they all brought over. So you're bringing over players that your coaches in front office have familiarity with. So you know, as soon as those guys walk into your building, you know exactly what you're going to get. I think also signing Mitch Trubisky, a guy that's going to be the backup quarterback to Cam Ward, and be able to mentor him and help him with different facets of his game and help grow that. I think it's been big. The moves they made, they really helped their young quarterback. And this is a new era in Tennessee and Nashville right now. It's a new logo, potentially new jersey. There's a lot going on. Yes, there's so much newness to it. So getting your new head coach.
Looks like I matched it today. You know why? Because I think they should take Jeremiah Love at number 4 overall and really just blow this thing out. It'd be incredible, right?
I said this a few weeks ago when we were on Get Up. It goes back to way back. They drafted Steve McNair, and that very next year they drafted Eddie George in the first round as well. So it would be nice to have that as a 1-2 punch between Cam Ward. We'll see.
Okay, coming up next, pass rushers are at a premium, right? Trey Hendrickson, still a free